is CNN.
More destruction and rage in Los Angeles. The violent reaction to not guilty verdicts for the police officers who beat Rodney King.
And we must keep on working to create a climate of understanding and tolerance and condemn a climate of bigotry and fear.
It is obvious that lurking beneath that verdict, there is this huge, gaping feeling that the system is broken, unresponsive, and unfair.
The presidential candidates ponder action and look for answers to the crisis in California. We explore these difficult issues on Inside Politics 92.
Next.
This is Inside Politics 92 with Catherine Crier at the CNN Center in Atlanta and Bernard Shaw in Washington.
Inside Politics begins with an update from the campaign trail. Here's Susan Rook.
First, we are updating you on the situation in Los Angeles. The death toll from the rioting there seems to be rising every hour, just as arson fires are spreading into the metro area. 21 people now have been reported killed in violence with each other and with police. The LA Fire Department is fighting more than 200 fires, more than 30 of them said to be major. Although South Central LA remains a priority, Hollywood is a new crisis center. An overnight curfew is in effect, but it appears to have little authority. Groups of people are still roaming the streets. Looters and curfew breakers are being arrested. Looters rampage through the city today, taking store goods and vandalizing buildings. 2,000 National Guard's troops are in the streets. They are joining police in trying to enforce that curfew. Tonight, 24 Guard soldiers reportedly were fired on at a video arcade that was threatened by looters. The guardsmen reportedly did not shoot back. Governor Pete Wilson is sending an additional 2,000 National Guardsmen to L.A. from Northern California. Well, the rioting and the verdict that provoked it are resulting in calls for help from the federal government. President Bush responded today, but some say he's not doing enough. CNN's Mary Tillotson has that.
As Los Angeles burned, George Bush, like a lot of Americans, watched on television. As he later told a broadcasters' convention in Ohio, he was sickened by what he saw.
No one watching the television coverage of the violence yesterday afternoon and evening could have any reaction other than revulsion and pain. And mob brutality, the total loss of respect for human life, was sickeningly sad.
Sickening is also the word Mr. Bush used a year ago to describe the videotaped police beating of Rodney King. White House officials say privately Mr. Bush was astounded at the disparity between what he saw on that tape and the verdict of acquittal. But the president stopped short of publicly criticizing the verdict. Administration officials say the president did not want to undermine the jury process or taint a possible federal prosecution or stir up emotions even further. Instead, Mr. Bush attempted to reassure people who see racism in the acquittal of white officers who beat a black man. He stressed the federal government has speeded up its own investigation of whether King was brutalized.
In the American conscience, there is no room for bigotry and racism. I want everyone to know that the federal government will continue to pursue its legal responsibilities in this case.
But Democratic members of Congress from California say they want more from Mr. Bush than further investigation.
We're asking him to use leadership to say to this nation that he believes there has been injustice. And we're asking him to speak directly to the young black males and tell them that their lives are valued in this country. We want some leadership. We want the Justice Department to prosecute.
We are demanding that the United States Justice Department not just investigate. Jim Crow justice has no place in California or anywhere else in the United States.
President Bush says the scenes from California and now elsewhere are so violent it's hard to watch, but that Americans must keep watching and working to create a climate of tolerance. Toward that end, the president will meet with black leaders at the White House early Friday. Mary Tillotson, CNN, Columbus, Ohio.
White House spokesman Marlon Fitzwater criticized Bill Clinton today, saying he was trying to play election year politics with the LA riots. Fitzwater said, quote, "I noticed that Slippery Bill chose to treat this as a political opportunity." He was reacting to Clinton's comments that President Bush should be more involved in healing the racial divisions in the U.S. Well, tonight Clinton had this reaction to Fitzwater's comments.
I can't imagine what I said about this that would have provoked that kind of response.
It's obvious, though, that there's been poll after poll to show some improvement in Pennsylvania, but that shows that the question in some voters' minds about character, and the press has used the word slippery. You refuse to say why the president's spokesperson might say slippery?
Well, we know that it's a very political White House, so they don't miss a chance. But, you know, today, I just don't want to get into a political fight today. I want us to focus on Los Angeles today. I got months and months and months to fight with the president and with Marlon Fitzwater, and I'll welcome that. I just don't want to put any static into our focus on this Los Angeles issue. He obviously, his choice of words may have been deliberate, but what provoked the response must have been something that he was told I said. I've tried not to make this political. I just want to get it over with.
Another Democratic presidential hopeful, Jerry Brown, former governor of California, canceled campaigning in Lincoln, Nebraska today. He returned to Los Angeles because of the riots. That is the latest. I'm Susan Rook. We go back now to Catherine Crier with more on the King verdict.
Now let's gauge the fallout from the violence and the verdicts in Los Angeles for the politicians and for the voters. California Assembly Speaker Willie Brown joins us from Sacramento, and from Washington, our public opinion analyst, Bill Schneider. Mr. Speaker, let me begin with you. What is your reaction to the verdict and to the violence?
I thought the verdict was a real tragedy for this nation, and I think the violence is equally a tragedy for this nation. There's just no explanation that's appropriate for either.
What should be the response of the city leaders?
I think the city leaders have lost all credibility. When the institutions were respected at the time of the beating, and when the communities that were adversely affected, particularly the African-American community, did not respond at that time, that should have been a signal that there's still somebody willing to speak out and in fact provide an opportunity for faith and trust and confidence that the institution will provide an opportunity for justice. But then to transfer this case to a place similar to Mississippi for purposes of having a trial, and to have that trial turn out the way it did, clearly says to African Americans, it's going to be difficult for you ever to get equal justice under the law. That's what's prompting the violence in Los Angeles. It's a tragedy. It cannot in any manner help things, but it's understandable.
Expand, if you will, to the national arena. What would you call upon the national leadership to do?
I think Mr. Bush, in anticipation of the potential for violence on this verdict, should have had on the scene in California the entire armaments of the federal government, the Justice Department, and all others, and he should have been saying very strongly to the African American community, we will proceed to do exactly what we do in Mississippi, where Cheney and Goodwin and Schwerner were in fact treated the way they were treated, killed and what have you. You recall that it was civil rights violations that convicted those police officers. If the president had said, just be a little patient for a little longer, we're going to do what we can from the federal level to see that there is a measure of justice in this situation. If that had in fact happened, my guess is it would have at least given those of us who are in leadership positions, particularly Mayor Bradley, an opportunity to be armed to convince the community not to engage in its current conduct, but to simply wait until this thing went down the way it went down, to say nothing, to have the Justice Department put it on hold. All of that contributed substantially to the lack of trust and confidence in the institutions that resolve disputes between people. In addition thereto, let me tell you, the fact that there are no jobs, the fact that schools have deteriorated, the fact that in fact the poverty is worse now among African Americans than it's ever been, the fact that all the drugs and the crack and the AIDS problems all exist and seem to be no one paying any attention to them, or at least the last 3 administrations, all of that is evidence in itself in the demonstrations in Los Angeles. The Rodney King verdict was just a means by which the release would be forthcoming.
On that note, let me bring Bill Schneider in. Bill, the urban issues have not received a lot of attention throughout the presidential primaries. How do you expect this to affect those particular issues?
Well, I think Jesse Jackson and others have been complaining that the urban agenda has been neglected by Democrats as well as Republicans. And the sense of injustice over this case was very profound. The danger is that it's being overtaken by a sense of outrage over the violence. This is a polarized situation. In a polarized situation, it's very hard for anyone to hold to the center. There's a risk for President Bush here. If the situation gets out of control, he'll be blamed, as Lyndon Johnson was in the 1960s when there was racial violence. And for Bill Clinton, his message is one of racial healing. That's a message that appeals to the center. But in a situation of intense polarization, of hatred, of racial tension, there's not going to be as much of an audience for that racial healing message that Clinton has been trying to propel into this campaign.
Bill, the violence is reminiscent of 1965, Berkeley, Watts. What about the political fallout from those incidents? Any parallels?
Well, I think remember that the violence at Watts in 1965 was almost directly responsible, I would say, for the election of Ronald Reagan as governor of California. There was a sense of backlash, of outrage over that violence. We know that when you have this kind of polarization between blacks and whites, this kind of tension, the fact is conservatives usually win. There are more whites than blacks. There are more conservatives than liberals. That's the real danger that this proposes. The 60s began with Watts rioting and violence in Los Angeles, precisely where the violence is taking place now, and it produced the first great figure of the 60s, and that was Ronald Reagan.
Speaker Brown, one final question. What about the aftermath? Certainly the situation is so tense, it's hard to predict, but long-term implications of these events?
I think Bill is correct. I believe that this will adversely affect the electoral ability of people who want to be in the center or on the left. And I believe that it will simply perpetuate the situation as it currently exists. I don't think schools will be attended to the way they need to be attended to. I don't think those who previously made capital investment, the grocery chain and people like that, will want to go back into that situation knowing that they could possibly be destroyed again. I don't think that the police units of this nation watching this violence will in any manner understand the sensitivity that they need to show in future relationships. I just think it's a step backwards.
California Assembly Speaker Willie Brown, public opinion analyst Bill Schneider, thank you both. Bernie?
Joining us now, Elton Gallegly, Republican congressman from California, and he's also the former mayor of Simi Valley, where the trial of the 4 Los Angeles police officers was moved. When you first learned that the trial was coming to your city, what were your feelings?
Well, of course, there was a certain amount of apprehension and concern that it may create a great deal of turmoil in that community, Bernie. And having lived there for 25 years, it was something that we weren't accustomed to. But having a great deal of faith and confidence in the people of Ventura County, I honestly felt if there was any place that anyone could get a fair trial, it would be in Simi Valley.
Your reaction to the verdict and to the violence?
Well, first of all, I think most people were surprised at the verdict, but having not had an opportunity to see and hear all of the testimony, and being a strong supporter of our judicial system in this country, certainly the trial, I believe, was transparent, at least to most people across this country, having access to the proceedings. As it relates to the turmoil and problems in South Central Los Angeles, I lived in South Central Los Angeles during the Watts riots in 1965. It's the most frightening experience of my life. And my heart goes out to those people that are living there and the victims of all of this turmoil. And they continue to be hurt by a group of thugs that I think are using the excuse of this verdict to do some violent things. And it is not representative of the lion's share of the people in that district.
Any concerns for the image of Simi Valley?
Certainly not in my case. I'm very proud of the people of Simi Valley, the people of Ventura County. They're law-abiding citizens. They're people that believe in justice, people that demand a great deal of their police officers. In fact, that city has a police force that has one of the lowest complaint rates as it relates to excessive force of any department in the nation. And that isn't something that just happened.
Congressman, thank you.
Thank you.
When we return, the former Democratic candidate for president, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, on the violence in Los Angeles and how to stop it.
Good morning, front desk.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me, we've been waiting. Miss, you've got to check out. I would say 14.
Could you go through 1214? I'm sorry, just one more moment.
How long is this going to take?
At Marriott, our priority is you. And with Express Checkout, you never have to wait online. Service, the ultimate luxury at Marriott.
Fleischmann's Margarine asks, what is good? Oh, that's good. Real good. And that's very good. Fleischmann's, of course, that's good. And will you look at that? Oh, there you go. That's better than good. Oh, boy. Fleischmann's Margarine. Have you been good to yourself today? That's good. Fleischmann's. Be good to yourself.
I was already late for my meeting when my flight landed. Lucky for me, someone left a courtesy car. I had to get the dollar rent-a-car fast. I knew they were right on the airport with low rates.
Welcome to Dollar.
Hello, I have a car rental reservation.
No problem. I'll just punch it up on the computer. Dollar Rent-A-Car is right on the airport, right on the money, with unlimited mileage and locations worldwide. Call your travel consultant or Dollar at 1-800-800-4000.
There's other ways to handle the situation through politicians and making changes, protesting, organized. You know what I'm saying?
The Reverend Jesse Jackson has called the verdict a, quote, grave miscarriage of justice, and after meeting with Attorney General Barr, he called on the federal government to bring civil rights charges quickly against the 4 police officers. He joins us here in Washington. In thinking about the fluidity of the situation, how careful should leaders be in criticizing the actions of officials during the situation? A case in point, I heard you call Police Chief Daryl Gates insensitive and arrogant. Bill Clinton has criticized President Bush's actions thus far.
There is this delicate
is there
line.
The potential for it?
There is this delicate line between criticizing them to do the right thing and at the same time trying to quell the explosion, the riots, to save people's lives and seek alternatives to the pain. For example, prior to the Rodney King situation, the big scandal in the LA Police Department was the use of chokeholds, where they were literally using this process, which killed several black men, to make them submit. And Daryl Gates' response was, but they got strong necks, the way they're made up biologically. Well, that was bigoted and wrong and hurtful. He showed no remorse when these 4 police officers beat Rodney King in this way. And President Bush, I might add, 3 days after the whole world had seen these beatings on TV, had a meeting of police chiefs at the White House. Included was Daryl Gates. He pointed Daryl Gates out, with whom he campaigned in '88, as an American top cop hero. How insensitive could he be while those tapes of the beating were being seen on TV to exalt him to another level? So that is insensitive, and it is, and it undermines the credibility in the judicial process.
Is there the risk of exploitation of this crisis by politicians?
Well, the risk is not to be exploited by politicians, but the elements for the exploitation is there. The Justice Department, for example, they've prosecuted 128 police brutality acts since 1988 as a case in point. Philip Parnell, a young black teenager shot in the back by 2 police in New Jersey, and they walked away free on the East Coast. But there were no video cameras there, but shots in the back. And King on the West Coast. So it looks to be a kind of open season. And we seek now to restore credibility to the Justice Department and criminal justice system for all involved. It may be some insight into why there are more young black males in America in jail than there are in college. We see an ugly side of America in LA today, and all of us, black and white alike, must address it and bear some responsibility for it.
Last question. What is your solution?
Well, clearly we need a commitment to an urban policy. When we have these explosions in Eastern Europe and the Russian republics, we look at it and say, well, leadership, if you can quell the rioting, if you can stop the civil wars, if you can commit a plan of self-determination. We'll offer a commitment of aid and trade and development, put people back to work, build infrastructure and educational institutions. If we can do that for Eastern Europe and the Russian republics, what about urban America? While infrastructures are collapsing in Chicago and San Diego, while youth are dropping out of school at the 50% level, this is the time, in my judgment, to cut the military budget without cutting the defense and begin to reinvest in America and its people in a major way. Europe and Japan can better afford to defend themselves now, plus nobody's after them, plus we need the money for America.
Reverend Jackson, thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Buchanan says he's outraged by the violence in Los Angeles, and he doesn't like the way President Bush has reacted to the rioting. Buchanan talked with reporters while campaigning in North Carolina.
I thought the White House, the president's statement was weak and equivocal. And I've read it. And he should be much firmer. He's to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and what happened last night were the constitutional rights to property and to life were relentlessly trampled upon and destroyed in the city of Los Angeles in block after block after block. And I think the first responsibility of the President of the United States is to condemn that.
Buchanan says anger at the verdict in the police beating trial might be justified, but he says there's no justification for the rioting. Buchanan calls the violence inexcusable and indefensible. Prospective presidential candidate H. Ross Perot also is talking about the troubles in Los Angeles. A written statement from Perot says, "I'm disappointed by the verdicts in Los Angeles. The burning and killing in the streets is also a tragedy because it further divides and weakens our country. We must unite to solve our problems. If we fight with one another, we all lose. The federal government must take legal action immediately to demonstrate that justice will be done." We'll be right back.
They let 4 cops get off, and then it led to what you see behind you. And then after that, it's going to lead to more and more until they do something about the police and change the system around to something. If they're not, a lot of people are going to get hurt.
This is Federal Express. This is Konica. Why you use Federal Express? Why Federal Express uses Konica. So if you know this company, you should know this company, because Konica delivers for Federal Express.
Spring Air Mattress Value Days are here. Great buys on all Spring Air mattresses. There's even a sweepstakes. You can win a trip to Paris on the Concorde. Take off for your Spring Air dealer today, because Mattress Value Days end soon.
A political analyst tells you what campaign developments mean, and CNN brings you 3 of the best as part of the most experienced team ever assembled to cover Campaign USA 92, only on CNN.
Gillette presents Sensor, the system, the technology that will change the way you shave forever. Sensor, twin blades set on springs to read your face and respond. Independent suspension to sense and adjust to every curve of your face. No other razor comes close. Gillette Sensor, for the best shave a man can get.
Pedigree wins again at the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show.
It's the biggest moment of my life.
She just won the breed at Westminster.
The joy of a lifetime. I took best of breed at Westminster.
Great to win the breed at the Garden. Today's result was best of breed, best of opposite, and an award of merit to 3 dogs that I bred.
Judy's a pedigree winner.
Henry loves pedigree. Yes, pedigree is the real winner.
She wins with the pedigree.
Pedigree, developed with vets, recommended by top breeders.
Things were out of control. Lighting awful. Heat. What heat? Superintendent's nightmare. So in comes Honeywell. They revamp our lighting controls, our heating and cooling equipment. And suddenly we're saving energy, money, the learning environment. 180-degree turn. This school's come a long way. The kids have too.
Honeywell, helping you control your world.
Where do you find all this? If you said the Bahamas, you're not only right, you're close. The Bahamas, the country Columbus first set foot on. For a free guide to the Bahamas, call 1-800-8-BAHAMAS or see your travel agent.
Shoot down roaches with a common spray. And more can pop up later. That's because it can't reach the hundreds behind your walls. But Combat Roach Killing Disc can. Its poison is carried by roaches back to their nest, where others share it and die. Combat. There's no better weapon against roaches.
For 2 years, Bobby Bonilla led the Pirates to the top of the division. Now he's in New York, determined to show the Mets the way back to the playoff zone. The Mets battle the Braves, live at 7:35 Eastern Friday night on TBS.
Imagine election coverage that offered straight talk on candidates, their voting records, their stand on issues. Imagine election coverage that cut through the familiar rhetoric, mudslinging, and negative advertising. Imagine election coverage that's informative, easy to find, and simple to understand. This year, don't imagine, watch Campaign USA 92, a different kind of coverage, only on CNN.
That's all for this edition of Inside Politics 92. I'm Catherine Crier in Atlanta.
I'm Bernard Shaw in Washington. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to give a special gift to a boy or girl 8 years old and up, get your pencil ready and write down this number, because I've got just the answer for you. It's National Geographic World Magazine, published especially for kids by the National Geographic Society. World brings real-life adventure, page after page of fascinating articles and pictures in National Geographic color. Young readers will have fun exploring Earth, sea, and sky, the environment, and ways to protect it, and enjoy articles on sports, hobbies, science, and adventure. World entertains while it fulfills curiosity, stimulates the imagination, and encourages your youngster to read more. It's amazingly inexpensive for 12 colorful issues of World magazine. Compare this unique once-a-month, 12 times a year gift to a single gift from a toy store, and you can see what a bargain this is. No shopping, no wrapping, no shipping. You cannot buy World magazine at the newsstand or bookstore. You can get it only through the mail, and it's so easy to order. Just call with that special child's name and address today. Call 1-800-257-1257. Each issue has exciting surprises, challenging games and puzzles, inspiring stories about other kids, plus extra-large pull-out pages. All this for only $12.95 for 12 issues. Plus, we'll include junior membership in the National Geographic Society. Your child will receive this welcome kit that includes a membership certificate, an ID card, a colorful iron-on emblem, plus the chance to compete for a $5,000 scholarship. And when you call with your gift order, we'll also mail a special personalized gift card from you. Call 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257. 12 colorful issues, junior membership, and the welcome kit, plus a card from you. This gift lasts a year. The benefits last a lifetime.